I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for the bass player back in Megadeth. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lone University. In this week's episode, I'll be analyzing and reacting to Symphony of Destruction from none other than Megadeth, featuring the quintessential lineup of Dave Mustaine on rhythm guitar and vocals, Marty Friedman on lead guitar, the late Nick Menza on drums, and Mr. David Ellefson on the bass guitar. This was one of their breakthrough albums right after Rust in Peace. That was kind of a 1-2 punch for them that really put them on the map. And if you've been following me for the last few years, you'll know that in some capacity I've worked with both Davids in Megadeth. David Ellefson plays EMG in Jackson, so do I, and we've done some things together at NAMS and with EMG all the way over to Germany and Warwick base camps. And then much later, I worked with Dave Mustaine in the studio producing some tracks for my unfortunately now defunct band Watermox, where we did 2 tracks. So if you look up Watermox on Spotify, those are the songs we worked on with Dave. Sort of a COVID casualty, unfortunately, but I got a lot of great insight working with Dave Mustaine, and he told me some interesting tidbits about this song that I'll share. But before we go any further, let's jump into Symphony of Destruction. I actually don't think I've ever seen this music video. I'm sure it looks kind of like the Holy Wars one. I have seen that.
You take them all, the man, and put them in control.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this.
Watch him become
Listen to that bass guitar just driving it. All right, so the first thing I want to point out is that when I was working with Dave, he listened to all of our original demos for Watermox and said, "This is good stuff, but you don't have your Symphony of Destruction yet." Kind of tough words to hear. And then we later went and did some songs with him that he thought were better. But he told me about this song, he had turned in Countdown to Extinction to their record label. They were very happy with it. And the label more or less said, "You don't have your hit single, something that's really marketable. Take this back to the drawing board and come back with that blockbuster single that we need." So out of angst, spite, Dave went into the studio and said that he threw this riff out as a complete joke because it was so simple and just void of any creativity. And he sent it in, maybe halfway serious, kind of paraphrasing the story from about 3 or 4 years ago. And look, it ended up being Symphony of Destruction. So it kind of goes to show you that don't overthink it too hard. I know we as musicians tend to overthink every little thing about the music we're writing, but sometimes it's the classic, your lowest effort thing, the thing that you throw together last minute might be the one that does it. So that was a little tidbit that I thought was very interesting. But as far as the bass goes, I want to point out that this song and these verses would be so different without that driving bass part. Now you might think, okay, Mark just got done saying how simple of a riff this is that was kind of done as a joke or haphazardly. The bass is just playing E string palm muted eighths. Great, it's a metal song. Yes, but let me show you something real quick. If I were to take this exact same riff that I went and re-recorded the guitar and drums, and I'm going to leave the bass out. Okay, I'm going to play just with the guitar, and I'm going to stop playing bass when the guitar stops. Check it out. You'll notice how much of a difference this makes. Excuse my sloppy recording. Very empty. Adds a lot, adds so much. Let's do that again. So I want you to pay attention. I'm going to play the first repeat, only playing with the guitar, and then I'm going to add back in those driving eights. You can just see how it drives it so much more. It's the simple stuff that matters the most. It just loses momentum versus... Little stuff like that is important. And sometimes as bass players, we think, oh, if the guitar player's not playing, I can't play either, because it's about this big wall of sound. You got to hit when the guitar hits and you got to leave room. No, you don't. If the guitar part is off, add something with bass. You never know. It might completely change the trajectory of a song. And I just wanted to show you how something that simple can change the whole way the verse feels. It feels completely different without the bass. And you wouldn't know it because you've never heard it that way until I just showed you. So something I wanted to point out. So let's jump back into the song.
Watch people's heads a roll.
I love that 90s music video editing. Blurry, slow shutter, it's cool. I love how melodic this chorus gets all of a sudden. Back to punchy. It just supports those vocals and just... It's so simple but so effective. Dave has such a creative vocal delivery. It's just... It's like it's talking, but it's singing. It's very interesting. Okay, I want to go back a little bit, and this is something else I want to highlight. Let's see where I can find that pre-chorus riff. Right here. So let's listen to this pre-chorus. You notice the guitar part is what's called an ostinato, which is basically a musical phrase that just repeats over and over and over again. That's really all the definition is. But in my experience, whenever I hear or see an ostinato, it means that the forefront part, so you might think this riff is the main thing going on, it actually goes to the background. It's repeating while other things around it are changing. In this case, it's the bass part. So listen to the guitar part and listen to what the bass part's doing. The guitar part's kind of going something about like that over and over again. A, G sharp, G. Now listen to the bass part. It's going from E to G to D. I'm sorry, to C to A to D. All while the guitar part stays the exact same. Check it out.
Before the head explodes.
G. C. Down to A. Up to D. That is an extremely effective thing to do as a bass player. You have more power than you think to dictate the entire feel and flow of the song. Not only with simple things like, basic eighth notes on the verse, but if you're ever in a situation where there's a riff just kind of repeating like this, don't think, oh, I've got to follow the guitar part. We play rock, we play metal. I can't get too weird. You don't want to be stuck in a bass riff going... That pre-chorus would have no direction if Ellefson were to have just mirrored that riff. Instead, he puts an entire chord progression under it that I think the vocals cling to, or maybe the vocal melody was already there and he followed it. Either way, my point is that there's no reference for a chord progression. You are the chord progression as a bass player. You realize that, right? If you're in a typical rock and metal band setup, guitar, maybe some keyboards, drums, vocals, most of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to be the lowest note. If they're playing an E power chord, you could put whatever you want under it and change the whole feel of it. You can invert it. You can second invert it. You can completely drive it a different direction. You can go up chromatically. You have the power to drive the tonality of the song, because you determine the root note. Think about it. Let me show you another example, and let me take a little detour and kind of show you this as well. So what I'm going to show you here is I recorded a loop of me just playing E and a B, so it's an E power chord. Okay, now if there were a guitar riff like that, you might also think, oh, the guitar is playing an E chord, I have to play an E. No, you don't. No, you don't. Check this out. I want to show you how many different chords and root notes that you could do to completely influence the way that sounds. Check it out. You might feel like I have to play E. What if I played C? Completely changes it, right? Listen how boring that would be if I just played an E, because as a bass player, I feel like I have to play what the guitar player's playing. No, you don't. You certainly do not. This is called an ostinato. It's repeating. Change the root note. You could put a D under it. So if I'm playing E and B and I add a D now I'm playing sort of a D. I'm playing a D with a 9 and a 6 in it. Or I could go to A and make it an A minor 9. Or I could play B and then do a B11, so a suspended fourth. I could go to C and make the whole thing C major 7. I could go down to G and kind of give it a G6 kind of feel. I could go to F sharp and kind of make it a minor 7 sort of kind of thing, suspended. I'm not getting too weird with the jazzy extensions, but my point is that you can put different root notes under this and completely change the way the entire song sounds. Let's listen to that example one more time, and I'll kind of show you how important it is. You wouldn't want to stick with the song like this. Where do you go? Change the root note. Okay, very important. You have the power as a bass player. Let's jump back into the song. But that's essentially what's happening over that pre-chorus riff. He's going. That kind of thing. Very important. And you might have heard Symphony of Destruction and gone, oh yeah, it's just like a really commercial sounding metal song. Sure, it sounds good because of stuff like this. The bass is really a big, important part of this song. He's kind of doing it here in the chorus as well. You'll notice the guitar part's kind of going, oops, turn the volume down. But my point is the guitar is doing some of these upper mid-range, kind of doing inverted chords in and out, and the bass is kind of going under it. It's important. He's not following the guitar part exactly. Stop doing that if you're a bass player, because you have a lot of options, a lot more than you think you do. Listen to the bass line. A lot of good harmonic weaving there. All right, I'm going to get out of the way for this Marty solo. the best solos. Brings it down.
The earth starts to rumble.
Dynamics are important, even in metal when everything's supposed to be loud.
World power.
This is a vibe right here.
Roaring for the heavens.
You know, you can come out of that powerful Marty Friedman classic solo, just ripping the bends, come back down. Just remember, if you're in a rock and metal band, if everything's loud and intense, then nothing is loud and intense. Very important. If everything's balls to the wall, then what's balls to the wall then? Because that's all you've shown. You have to have some reference. That's why these verses are so effective.
A peaceful man stands tall.
Here we go. Listen to the bass. Guitar part's just the same. It really drives home this chorus right here. It kind of meets. I don't think that harmony's on the record. Never noticed that. Okay, so Symphony of Destruction. Classic Megadeth song. Arguably one of the more simple, less technical ones, but there's a lot of important, just well thought out playing, both from Mustaine and Ellefson. And as I've shown you, the bass has a really integral part in making the song feel and kind of drive the way it does, from the eighth notes in the bass all the way to the kind of dictating the chord progression in the pre-chorus. Very powerful stuff. A little bit of a story time. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for the bass player back in Megadeth. He's not in Megadeth anymore, but obviously he's one of the founding members from way back when. And he was at the time that this happened. So back in 2014, I was a wee young lad going across the pond on my own for the first time to a Warwick bass camp back when they used to host those, and I was a Warwick artist. And Warwick would just invite 100 of the best bass players they could find. I don't really put myself in that category. I was going because I was already a Warwick artist. Obviously, Dave Ellefson plays Jackson. Lots of high-profile bass players there. We did a week long of camps, parties, hangouts, jams, you know, just a bass player's paradise. And we were in the city of Markneukirchen, way in East Germany. So we had to take a charter bus back to Frankfurt Airport, about 4-hour, 5-hour drive late at night. And we left the bar at 2 a.m. So everybody's asleep. We're going through rural Germany and the mountainsides, the ravines, lots of winding road. It was rainy. It was foggy. And I fell asleep. And so did about 80 other bass players. Everybody was on that bus. Victor Wooten, Rex Brown from Pantera, Adam Nitti, Steve Bailey, Evan Brewer, Nick Shangelis, lots of Warwick staff, Brandino, who played with Justin Timberlake. I mean, just all sorts of session guys. Ralphie Armstrong, I believe. I should have had this list out. Nonetheless, it was an important bus in terms of bass players. And I woke up to the sound of everybody screaming at the top of their lungs, luggage falling out. The bus it was just shaking. I thought we'd been in a wreck, and we almost were. We were about to go off of a cliff because the bus driver fell asleep. And the only person awake was Dave Ellefson. And he was sitting in the front seat. And he saw it coming, and he lunged over that little divider. You know, the charter bus has the driver kind of down here, and everybody's sitting up higher. He lunged over it and turned the steering wheel back onto the highway and saved all of our lives. We would have gone off a ravine. I mean, 50, 100-foot drop. I can't quite remember, but I remember everybody being absolutely frazzled out of their mind. We pulled off into a gas station. Everybody's livid. It was just not a pretty way to wake up. But you ask any of those people I named about that story, they'll tell you. And had it not been for David Ellefson, we would all be yesterday's news. So I guess there's a special place in my heart for that guy because here I am living to tell the story. And if you look at this photo here, not much to see, but we tried to reenact it once it became funny a couple hours later, and we all kind of laughed it off. But I'll never, ever forget that. So, yeah, working with Dave Mustaine and this story, I feel like Megadeth always has a place in my heart as well because I've had some interesting experiences with some members of that band. And yeah, Symphony of Destruction, what a great song. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any other suggestions for my baseline analysis series. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we will see you next week. Cheers, and have a great week.